everyone, thanks so much for tuning back in. It's me, Emma, and today I am here to talk to you about writing great, emotive, and captivating content for your photography website. And this is something that I know a lot of people struggle with. Artists everywhere struggle with this, so you are not alone. So if this is you, don't worry, we're going to talk about some tips to help you not struggle with this. So first off, why is it important? Like, shouldn't your work speak for itself? That's a question that a lot of artists say about, why they shouldn't have to write about their work. And the short answer to that is no, your work does not just speak for itself. You can have the most beautiful work. You still need to write about your work and create content for your website for a few reasons. The first is because, your potential clients and collectors want to read what you have to say about your work. They want to connect, similarly to the artist bio, they want to connect over what you have to say about your work. They think your work is beautiful and they want to hear what you have to say about it. The second really major reason that you need to write about your work is, for your website, is for SEO purposes. Content is king, and the written word is part of that. The more writing that you have on your website, the more that search engines understand what your site is about, and it'll be better for ranking your site. Also, if there's more words on your site, people are going to be spending more time on your site, and so that's going to help your site authority because people aren't just bouncing away from a page because there's nothing to read or your images didn't load in time. Things like that. So it's really important to have written words on your site for people to actually read and spend time on your site, for a search engine to understand it, and for the people who are reading to connect. So now that we've got the why you need to do it out of the way, let's move on to helpful tips to help get you going, because I know how hard it is. I have been there in the trenches. It's a huge struggle to really talk about your work, because if you could just talk about your work, you would be an author, not a visual artist, right? Like that's the trope. So one of the easiest things to kind of get you going, the first thing you can talk about with your work, is what I call materials and method. It's like the most basic thing you can talk about. Like, it's the what and the how of your artwork. So, what are you using to make your artwork? How are you using those things? So if you're a portrait photographer, like, are you a studio photographer or do you only shoot on location? If you have a studio, do you have a lot of props or a client closet? If you are an on-location photographer, do you only use natural light, or do you have like a complete lighting OCF setup? Things like that. You can talk about all of those different things that can entice your client for why they want to book with you. If you're like an art photographer, what are the things that you're doing to create your artwork? If you are going out and doing like these extensive research trips to find the things that you photograph, like, talk about that. If you are staging elaborate still lifes, talk about the research and sourcing of the materials. So materials and method is a great way to sort of like as a springboard launching point for your content writing. The next thing that is a huge part of content writing for your site is motivation. Why do you do what you do? And I do not mean, why are you a photographer? Writing why you are a photographer is not for the content that you put in all of the different pages of your website. Why you do what you do, the motivation for your content, is about why you do this specific kind of photography. So like, if you're an art photographer, it's, why this series, like if you're photographing all of the broken down sheds in your town, why are you photographing all these broken down sheds? If you are a wedding photographer or a newborn photographer, why are you, focusing on those niches? And this is is one of the hardest parts that I see artists of all stripes struggle with, is really nailing down and verbalizing this motivation. So my best advice that I can give is just persistently ask yourself why. Ask yourself, why do I do this kind of photography? Answer that question. Ask yourself why to that answer. And kind of keep on going. And there's a lot of different methods to really fleshing out and creating more and more writing, because it's not a one-word sentence. You know, the content that you write for your website should be not just a few phrases. It should be more extensive. So, you know, as you are writing and answering these questions, you're going to find phrases that really resonate with you about why you're doing these things. And so once you find a phrase that you like, maybe do some brainstorm mapping about like, oh, okay, so I really like this phrase. What is it about that phrase that is unlocking something within me, and build off of that. And you'll kind of start piecing together everything. So like when I was in grad school, the walls of my studio were just covered in paragraphs that I had written about my work. And I would just start cutting out paragraphs on different pages, and I was putting them together like a puzzle. And that was how I wrote my thesis. So there's all different ways that you can start putting together your content for your website, and we all have our own creative process for writing. So I encourage you to really take that time to explore, because the motivation is how you're gonna connect with your audience. And so along that vein, you want to be descriptive and emotive. Don't just say, so for me, I'm a wedding photographer. Don't just say, I photograph weddings because it is one of the most important moments that a person undertakes in their lives. You know, you want to be talking about the commitment that a person is making, that they are choosing to embark on an incredible life journey with another person. You know, like those are all, you know, specifically chosen words that they emote something to the person listening to them. You know, and I have so many things that I say about weddings, and it kind of depends on what the situation is and the question that was asked to me, how I talk back about why I choose weddings. So it's a little hard for me to just riff about it. But like, I do love weddings and photographing weddings. And so I have lots of written content on my website about it and in all of my collateral, and it's not all the same every single place. But you want to be descriptive and emotive with the words that you choose about why you are the kind of photographer that you are. And then lastly, this is another really important part. You want to get it peer reviewed. And I don't just necessarily mean you have to get it reviewed by other photographers. I just mean you need other people to read what you wrote and look at your work and see if what you wrote and your work match. Because just because you wrote it doesn't mean that it is so. You want to make sure that what people are seeing in your work matches what you wrote down. So be open to the feedback that people give you to make sure that if your work is saying one thing and what you wrote is saying another, you are open to either adjusting what you wrote, or if you're really married to what it is that you wrote, that you need to be open to evolving your work to reflect that. So getting it peer reviewed used to be really, really difficult, but now with the advent of the internet and websites and online professionals groups, it's actually really easy, and there's a lot of people who are willing to jump on and give you feedback, and you just need to be open to that feedback. So those are my tips for writing content / artist statement for your photography work. So I hope this has been helpful, and it kind of gets your creative juices flowing for how to write for your website. And drop some comments below if you have questions. Thank you so much.